Take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
CannabisRadio.com presents The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, this is great, man.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Welcome. Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Thursday, February 25th, 2016, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Glad you could be here. I'm at Rolla J Studios, but I'm working off of the remote laptop today because I'm having a major Dropbox problem. Dropbox on 2 or 3 different machines, everything got resynced and messed up, and somehow I lost a lot of my archives, and I'm having to reinstall, and what a mess it is. So I've got the main studio machines shut down, the 420 radio server shut down. I'm getting everything fixed on that side, so had to turn to the laptop to do today's show. So interesting to be at the home studio, but working on the remote studio. But that's the way it goes here. We are completely remote. And speaking of being remote, tomorrow we will be live on the road in Fort Worth, Texas. I'll be attending the Southwest Cannabis Conference and Expo. Here's an interesting little factoid. The conference takes place on Saturday and Sunday. Friday, tomorrow, the day before the event, that same building is holding a Donald Trump rally in Fort Worth, Texas. So I'm going to take the recorder and the camera out to see if I can speak to some Donald Trump supporters and get their take on marijuana legalization. What do they think their candidate ought to do about marijuana? So tune into tomorrow's show. I hope to have some clips from that. And if I can't get them on tomorrow's show, I might have to wait until Monday's show. But we'll get you some Donald Trump live clips from Fort Worth, Texas. Should be very, very interesting. Coming up on today's show, we've got a great guest for you in our Cops Say Legalized Drugs segment. Randy Long will be joining us. He's a former Crown prosecutor, a federal prosecutor in Canada. So we'll get a look at Canadian politics and ask him about the recent decision, the Allard decision up there in Canada, that has affirmed the right of medical marijuana patients to cultivate their own medicine. Big thanks to our friend Kirk Tusaw, the lawyer up there who managed to get that taken care of. Kirk's been a guest in my home and a longtime supporter of the show, so glad to see that he's having some success against prohibition up there. Also on today's show, we're going to go behind the headlines, and we're going to take a look at Arizona's campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol, also known as CRIMLA. It's the MPP initiative for legalization there. And there's been some question as to whether or not it protects the rights of people to home grow from any city that might want to try to ban that. We're going to sort through that and figure out exactly what's going on there with that Arizona initiative. In drug war data mining today, we've got this study that a lot of people are referring to today coming out of Colorado that shows that emergency room visits among tourists to Colorado for cannabis have doubled over the past year. More people going to the ER, more newbies from out of state going to the ER. We'll talk about that. We'll tell you what the stats are and why we really don't need to be thinking about that so much. It's not really as big a deal as the media is trying to portray. Also on the show, we'll have time for a radical rant. We're going to talk about a recent bill, Senate Bill 1551 here in Oregon, that looks to begin the merging of our recreational and our medical marijuana systems. I'm going to explain why that's actually a good idea and challenge anyone out there to tell me why we should try to keep them separate. A lot of people do want to keep them separate, but I think there's some hidden agendas for the reasons why they want to keep the system separate. So that's coming up right after our cannabis radio news. In the headlines today, we've got news coming out of Vermont, where legalization continues to move forward in their state Senate. We've got Utah moving forward on medical marijuana, the Southwest Cannabis Conference and Expo taking place this weekend, a bill for Michigan for roadside saliva testing, and Lego looking into hemp. All that coming up next.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs.
From high atop Mount Soledad in San Diego, California, 100 feet above sea level. Good morning. It's good news with cannabis nurse Heather.
This plant is amazing. Positive change is happening. We did it. No matter who you are, you can make a positive impact on the world.
I would rather be illegally alive than legally dead.
And that quote helped to give you strength.
Nurse Heather is only on CannabisRadio.com.
Good morning, cannabis nurse Heather.
It's time for the Cannabis Radio News. Covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Cannabis Radio News is now available exclusively at CannabisRadio.com. Now your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This is Cannabis Radio News.
This is your Cannabis Radio News for Thursday, February 25th, 2016. The Vermont Senate gave final approval to a bill Thursday, 17-12, that would end marijuana prohibition in the state and regulate the cultivation and sale of marijuana for adult use. S-241 received initial Senate approval on Wednesday. It will now advance to the House of Representatives, which will begin working on it after members return from town meeting week. S-241 would make it legal for adults 21 years of age and older to possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana and establish a tightly controlled system of licensed marijuana cultivation sites, testing facilities, and retail stores. It would also create a commission to examine issues such as edible marijuana production and home cultivation, which would not be allowed under the bill. It would remain illegal to consume marijuana in public or drive under the influence of marijuana. If approved, rulemaking would begin this summer, but the new law would not take effect until January of 2018. A recent poll found 55% of Vermonters support passing a law to legalize and regulate marijuana for adult use. Only 32% said they were opposed. Utah state senators gave preliminary approval on Monday to a medical marijuana proposal that would legalize edible, vapor, and topical pot products. Lawmakers voted 15-13 to advance the bill, saying the measure could help those with certain debilitating conditions who have not found relief through other medications. Bill sponsor Senator Mark Madsen, a Republican of Eagle Mountain, said the plan would allow tens of thousands of residents of those with medical conditions to use the drug, but would ban smoking it. Madsen expects a final Senate vote Tuesday. If approved, the measure must still be passed by Utah's House of Representatives. The vote took place on the same day the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints softened its stance on Madsen's proposal. While stopping short of endorsing it, the church said added restrictions to the plan late last week were substantial improvements. More than 6,000 people are expected at the Southwest Cannabis Conference and Expo this weekend when it takes over the downtown convention center in Fort Worth. Presenters include Montel Williams, former NFL stars, doctors, advocates, and veterans like Roger Martin. Although Texas now permits limited medical marijuana use, some people say the state continues to lag behind others. Local ABC affiliate WFAA profiled Alexis Bortel last year, a young Texas girl forced to relocate with her family to Colorado after they couldn't legally use the cannabis oils needed to help control her epileptic seizures. Bortel will be a featured speaker on day 2 of the Fort Worth conference. Late Wednesday, organizers issued a news release pointing out that presidential candidate Donald Trump would be speaking in the same place one day earlier on Friday. A bill designed to help catch more people driving under the influence of drugs would treat people like guinea pigs, an attorney opposed to the legislation says. The bill, which passed the Michigan Senate last month, would allow the Michigan State Police to run a pilot program in 5 counties to conduct roadside saliva testing for cocaine, marijuana, heroin, and other drugs. Attorney Neil Rockand, founder of the Southfield-based criminal defense law firm Rockand Law, said he opposes the bill and calls the proposed testing bad science, adding, quote, "People are not guinea pigs. No citizen should be the subject of a test program when their liberty and way of life are on the line," end quote. The program would cost local and state law enforcement agencies a combined total between $20,000 and $30,000, the fiscal report states, and a major cost would be the purchase of the swab tests, which can range in price from $250 to $700. The bill is currently in the Michigan House Judiciary Committee. Lego is looking for a sustainable alternative to petroleum-based plastic. Hemp might be the answer. Lego wants to switch the material it uses to make its trademark toy bricks beloved by children around the world. The company currently uses plastic resin, but by 2030, it wants to be using a more environmentally conscious and cost-effective material, according to a Plastics News report. Lego's senior project manager Alan Rasmussen told Plastic News that the new material must be able to form bricks that are indistinguishable from the current plastic-made bricks. Hemp actually makes an ideal base material for manufacturing plastic because of its high cellulose content. Lego uses more than 6,000 tons of petroleum plastic to make its bricks every year. This has been your Cannabis Radio News for Thursday, February 25th, 2016. I'm Russ Belville.
The next generation of vaporizers has arrived. Vuber vaporizers are blazing the way with unparalleled technology for oil, concentrate, or dry flower pens. Providing unsurpassed customer service and expert craftsmanship, Vuber vaporizers use cutting-edge technology, providing a power-packed, smoother vapor with a lifetime guarantee. Experience vaporizing the way it was meant to be, the Vuber way.
This is Cannabis Facts from Robert Platshorn's TheSilverTour.org, supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. In 1937, the second most prescribed medicine, marijuana, was banned. It wasn't about marijuana. The paper, oil, and chemical industries lobbied to end hemp farming. No longer labor-intensive, an acre of hemp produced more quality paper than 4 acres of trees. Plastics and fibers could be produced from a plant. Hemp can even produce 10 times the energy of today's ethanol. As marijuana prohibition ends, many states now allow farmers to again grow hemp. This was Cannabis Facts from TheSilverTour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to process America's hemp crop at hempinc.com.
With over 6 years of experience in the industry, New Era CPAs is one of the nation's leading cannabis accounting firms, helping hundreds of growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies with their tax, legal, and business strategies. New Era CPA's offices cover the West Coast from Seattle to San Diego, and their skilled team is always available to help you take your business to the next level. Visit neweracpas.com for more info and set up a consultation. Welcome to the New Era.
Every strain, every sale, every medical study. Keep it right here on the Cannabis Radio Network.
The world of cannabis is evolving at a frenetic pace. The Russ Belville Show gets behind the headlines to take a deeper look at breaking news in our Cannabis Focus.
Today in the Cannabis Focus, we're taking a look at the state of Arizona, one of 5 states that are fighting for marijuana legalization in the upcoming ballot for 2016. 4 of those states, Arizona, Nevada, Massachusetts, and Maine, are all being backed by the Marijuana Policy Project, and they are branding their campaigns as CRIMLA, the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. And Phoenix New Times is reporting a story as to whether or not the CRIMLA initiative in Arizona would allow cities to ban home cultivation. Under the initiative, it's proposed that adults would be able to grow up to 6 plants with a 12 plant per household maximum. So you and your wife could cultivate 12 plants in your home, but 12 would be the max. And the controversy here is whether or not the language of the initiative gives local control to cities and counties to be able to ban people's personal indoor gardens of 6 to 12 plants. Ryan Hurley, he's a lawyer for Crimla, says the cities cannot ban home growing. But Tom Dean, who's a lawyer representing Arizonans for Mindful Regulation, which is a competing initiative, says the opposite. He says it does allow municipalities to stop adults from home cultivation. And adding to this confusion is a Crimla supporter, a Crimla political director named Carlos Alfaro, who was shown in a video plainly stating that cities can implement the ban. Hurley says that Alfaro was mistaken in that video, but it has stoked the fires of this controversy. The people backing Arizonans for Mindful Regulation, that would be more of your true legalization group, backing a separate initiative, grassroots, volunteers, no fundraising, no signature gathering, unlikely to make the ballot. But they are standing up for the right of this home grow, which to them they say would be a deal breaker if cities and counties could ban the home grow. But according to the most recent update on this, we have an update from the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. This is Ken Strobeck, the executive director of the league, who reviewed the initiative. Now, this is the group, and if it's similar to the League of Oregon Cities and Association of Oregon Counties here in Oregon, those are the lobbyist groups for the cities and towns that want to be able to have bans. And the lobbyist, this guy, Ken Strobeck, the director, says, quote, "The short answer is the type of home grow operations that are allowed now under the medical marijuana initiative will continue to be allowed if the act passes. The act clearly states that aside from a few provisions, it does not affect any laws relating to medical marijuana. Anything currently allowed under state law for medical marijuana, 12-plant limit, will still be allowed under the new law. The act also requires the department to promulgate rules, and this new department will likely make those regulations compatible with the medical marijuana laws due to the explicit requirement in the act," end quote. But one major difference is that the Crimla lacks the 25-mile halo rule that the medical marijuana side has. In Arizona, under their Medical Marijuana Act, if you live within 25 miles of a dispensary, you are not allowed to home grow. And this is was very controversial when it was started in the state of Arizona. A lot of people are looking to this Crimla initiative as a way of undoing that medical home grow ban instituted by the 25-mile halo. So the situation would be that your medical grow would still be banned. Your 6 to 12 plant medical grow would still be banned within 25 miles of a dispensary. But your 6 to 12 plant recreational grow could not be banned. But, okay, what difference does it make whether you call it medical grow or you call it recreational grow, so long as you're allowed to grow? And that's the point people are making with Crimla here, is that it would not allow this ban. Where people are pointing to this rule within the initiative is where it gives the localities the ability to ban nuisances. The nuisance regulation, which is written into the Crimla, says that municipalities can, quote, restrict the smoking, production, processing, or manufacture of marijuana and marijuana products when it is injurious to the environment or otherwise is a nuisance to a considerable number of persons, end quote. And Jason Medar, the leader of the Arizonans for Mindful Regulation, says the city councils will lie and say that marijuana growing is a nuisance even when it clearly is not a nuisance. To me, I would have to defer to the point that an indoor grow, it would be very, very hard to show someone's indoor grow was a nuisance to someone else in the neighborhood. I could see that argument being made for an outdoor grow where the smell of the marijuana plants as they are being cultivated could become overpowering and annoying to people. But I cannot see how this could be used for a inside grow. Now, Meadart wants to claim that the smell, fertilizers, or high-powered grow lamps might be used to create some sort of nuisance. But I think that's really grasping at straws here, especially when the Arizona leader of the cities and counties doesn't even think he'll be able to ban.
MFer, I want more iced tea.
Well, okay, Mr. O'Reilly. We'll make sure you get your iced tea. Hey, folks, it's 4:20 in Denver, Colorado right now. Mountain Time Zone getting its 4:20 break on. I hope you're able to get your 4:20 break on. And if not, we're fighting to make it legal in your home state as soon as we possibly can. We'll be back with some drug war data mining out of Colorado. Pot ER visits by newbies are up.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com, and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact Normal at norml.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
Get the latest updates on the Russ Belville Show by following Radical Russ on Twitter and liking the Russ Belville Show on Facebook.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
Promoting the end of adult cannabis prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It's even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more on this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Welcome back to the Drug War Data Mines. Today we are taking a look at a report coming out of Westward in Denver, Colorado. It's their weekly that their independent weekly, and the headline here is Pot Tourist Visits to 1 ER doubled after marijuana legalization, study says. This refers to a study in the New England Journal of Medicine that points out how marijuana tourists aren't exactly ready for what's happening when they come into Colorado and get their shot at some herb for the first time in years and years and years, and points to the necessity for us to do better on our education for these folks so that we can avoid some of these terrible stories. Let's go to the stats first of all. And what we find here is that the emergency room visits for the visitors to Colorado nearly doubled, while the stats for those visitors that, or for those Coloradoans who are longtime residents, never changed. So let's take a look at this. According to this one hospital, the University of Colorado Hospital in Aurora, in 2012, there were 54 emergency room visits for cannabis. In 2013, that went up to 85. And in 2014, it's up to 168. Now, they've provided other drugs for comparison's sake here. Cocaine and methamphetamines were at 35 in 2012. They stayed at 35 for amphetamines for 2013 and increased to 57 for 2014. Likewise, cocaine's gone up from 35 in 2012 to 57 in 2014. So we have a situation where both coke and speed have also gone up. Now, not to the same extent that the cannabis ER visits have gone up, but we've seen those go up as well. Opioids, including heroin, have increased from 58 up to 76, so a slight increase there. The Colorado Hospital Association also took a look at their hospital visits, and their numbers go back to 2011. But let's take 2012 just to be making an apples-to-apples comparison here. In 2012, there were 78 visits for cannabis. In 2014, there were 163. So again, more than doubling in that respect. The cocaine visits actually went down for other hospitals, 63 in 2012 down to 43 in 2014. Amphetamines up from 62 to 94. Opioids, including heroin, down slightly from 78 down to 76. So the clear trend here for the out-of-state visitors would be this increase in cannabis-related emergency room visits. But I think this is actually, in a sense, good news. One reason why this is good news is that we are finally seeing people that have difficulties with their ingestion of cannabis, and now aren't afraid to go talk to the ER doctors or to go to the hospital when they are having that difficulty. Under prohibition, these people would be afraid to go to the ER, to talk to a doctor, to let everyone know that they are a cannabis consumer. So we are making progress in this respect, that people are no longer fearing the chance of arrest as something to prevent them from getting the sort of medical care that they are going to need. We're also finding that indeed some people, especially newbies, let's call them newbies, coming into the state, do need to get a little bit better educated with respect to marijuana and the effects that it might have on them. I think part of this can be traced to the problem that we've got when it comes to the lack of places for people to be able to consume cannabis. There's no public consumption, and so when a tourist comes into town, they can't consume in their hotel, and they can't consume in any clubs, so the only option left for them is to try an edible. And people that don't have a lot of experience with the edibles can be very easily find themselves ingesting far too much. It's important that we teach them that when it comes to edibles, you've got to start low and go slow. It's going to take an hour to an hour and a half before you start to feel any effects. And that a 10 milligram serving can be more than enough for someone who doesn't have much experience with cannabis. We're also finding some people that have had previous experience with cannabis overestimating what they can handle when they come back to it. Somebody who hasn't smoked cannabis in a long time, 20, 30 years, is going to be used to a lower grade of cannabis, a lower potency of cannabis. And if they're coming from those days and then trying to say, take a dab, they're going to find themselves in a very, very awkward position, possibly passing out and maybe facing some sort of anxiety or paranoia from the heavy dose that they'll be getting that they are in no way ready for. So these statistics show me that we need to do a better job of educating people, especially out-of-state visitors, and we need to keep fighting for some sort of indoor consumption license, some sort of pot lounge. So when newbies do come to town, they can be surrounded by locals who know what they're doing and can pick up some of the tips and tricks. Friends, don't let friends over-medicate. All right, folks, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, cops say legalize drugs. We'll be talking with Randy Long from Canada right after this.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Don't want to spend money on a night out, but don't know what to do other than watching TV or playing video games? Consider playing guitar, bass, banjo, or mandolin. The instrument will give you hours of entertainment with friends with minimal expense. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com. Tokers, there's no good reason to get your dog stoned. While it might not harm them physically, imagine being a dog who already begs for treats all day, and then imagine that dog having the munchies. Not cool.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
The Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment.
Okay, maybe you're high, too.
Ignite the conversation on some trending topics along the Cannabis Radio social media network. Join our crew of thousands on our Cannabis Radio page on Facebook or at Canna Radio, CANNA Radio on Twitter. Plus, look for our Facebook and Google Plus pages for all of our original programs and connect with Dr. Dina, Kyle Cushman, Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Nurse Heather, Doc Rob, the hosts of Ganjapreneur, and more. Connect with the growing Cannabis Radio social crusade at Canna Radio on Twitter or search for Cannabis Radio on Facebook, Google Plus, and Instagram and grow with us.
One of the most disturbing elements of the Prohibition War is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows the futility of prohibition and reaches out to educate the community and current law enforcement. Today, the Russ Belville Show visits with another speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition with one clear message. Cops say legalize drugs.
Welcome back, everybody, and time for us for our Cops Say Legalize Drugs segment. And for today's segment, we're going to be going to Canada, where we are going to get Randy Long on the line. He is a former Crown prosecutor with the federal government in Canada, and there's so many developments that we've seen recently in Canada with some court cases. Let's go to the phone line here and see if we can get him on the line. We're trying to reach Randy Long. Are you there, Randy?
It's not Randy, but I'll check for you. Can I say who's calling?
Yes, this is the Russ Belville Show. We have an interview with him scheduled.
Just a moment, please.
Thank you very much. So we'll get Randy here on the line in just a second. He's working at a business law firm right at the moment. Obviously have to get through some of the reception desks there. The most recent decision in Canada, of course, the Allard decision. Lawyer Kirk Tusaw, friend of the show.
Hey, Russ, are you there?
Hello, Randy. This is Russ. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. I forgot all about you.
I know. We were scheduled for a couple weeks ago, and we had something come up, but I'm so glad we got you back on the line. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing just great. Good to talk to you.
Well, I was telling the audience a little bit about your background as a former prosecutor for the federal government there in Canada, and there's so many changes going on in Canada right now, the most recent of which, this Allard decision with the Canadian Supreme Court. Can you give us some insight on that and how it helps Canadians?
Yeah, the insight is no more than I think what most people have, other than a bit of a shout out to the two guys, the guys being the two lawyers, John Conroy and Kirk Tusaw, are two lawyers that are in private practice and have done an amazing amount of work advancing the proposition of people's rights to use marijuana. Allard is a situation that essentially, to try and make it in brief form, but to try to make it make sense to an American audience as well, we've got much the same kind of frequent tension between courts and legislature, and we don't quite have the same executive structure. But to put it this way, the court decided that the government needed to move on this and to do something. So the court effectively said, look, we're going to give you a break. There's a period of time. You guys are going to have to legislate a change. The thing that I particularly liked about it from a legal point of view, not the decision per se, but from a legal point of view, was the court even ordered costs against the government.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. So
I thought it was amazing.
So now we've got a situation where, if I understand it correctly, the medical marijuana patients under Health Canada there in the country have been getting their medicine through mail order exclusively, and now they've got, this has established their right to home grow. Have I narrowed that down well enough?
Yes, and more than that, Russ. The thing is, it's gone in a series of 180 degrees, and again, what you got to know in terms of background, we've got a new federal government, and the policy on marijuana has been an absolute 180-degree change. And again, from a conceptual point of view, if you think of the guys who were in before, that is to say the Harper government, think of them as Republican light.
Okay.
If you think about the guys who are in currently, it's a little bit towards Bernie Sanders, but more towards Hillary Clinton Democratic mainstream, our liberal government.
Mm-hmm.
What used to be in the old regime was people could grow their own, but it was limited to a certain number of plants, and there were various restrictions. The Harper government came in and said, no, none of that, because that's all subject to abuse. And they came up with this regime where we had giant commercial grow shows. Now, what happened as a consequence of that is smart money saw an opportunity, and we've got a tremendous investment right now in infrastructure for major industrial growing operations. The Liberals aren't sure what they're going to do, and the court has turned around and said, people have a right to grow their own. So it is very much up in the air right now with, I think, some pretty strong pressure on the Liberals, being our existing federal government, to listen to the court, factor it in. Now, when you take that and put in the final factor, which is the Liberals, that is to say the federal government, are right now looking at what to do with marijuana decriminalization, and it's kind of black box, and we're working on it. It's going to be pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing, and I'm wondering about your experience as a prosecutor. Were you working during the Harper administration?
No, fortunately, I was out. I was active with previous administrations, a little more enlightened, and I would not have done well in the Harper administration because they took pretty much the Nancy Reagan view of just say no. That would have been a tough one for me, but duty calls. But fortunately, I was gone.
Now, with Prime Minister Trudeau pushing for legalization throughout his campaign, it seems now that he's become elected that maybe there's a little foot dragging. He's mentioning some of the UN treaties and maybe kind of trying to temper people's enthusiasm. What do you see for the future of legalization? Is it coming anytime soon for Canada?
Well, I think it's coming inevitably. I think the people are obviously way ahead of it. I think the Prime Minister and his cabinet, the people who are involved in the decision-making, again, are going to be many and varied. But it's coming now. I guess soon is all a relative concept. It's how it's going to come is really the question. Timing. There was an announcement by Bill Blair, who's the designated, a former chief of police of Toronto. So when I say he and just the designated guy, he's recently come out saying, well, we're going to have to go ahead and just continue to enforce marijuana the way we always did until we sort this out. I don't think that's a good idea. I think I understand from a police perspective why he'd say that, but I think if we're going to take that position, it better be soon.
Now, in your time as a prosecutor, of course, you had to prosecute lots of drug crimes, as they were called at the time. Was it something that you got into feeling, I mean, did you drink the Kool-Aid thinking you'd be helping and taking down kingpins and then find out later that, wait a minute, reality didn't match what you were sold?
Yeah, you took my story away completely. Absolutely. In as much as I thought I was doing good. I thought I was fighting the good fight, and I was particularly keen to go up the chain and to make society a better place and take away the parasites and the bad guys, et cetera, et cetera. And I found that wasn't the reality of the situation, particularly if we're just talking about marijuana, but particularly about a marijuana prosecution. That's not what we were seeing, and that's not the reality. And people are now aware of that. So I found myself, when doing marijuana prosecution, very, very uncomfortable. And I found myself still, from a law enforcement point of view, looking around at the amount of resource, the level of talent, and I mean real talent in our investigators. And I just concluded, this is just squandered. It's absolutely a waste of resources. And I got to tell you, inside the tribe, inside the fold, there was a whole lot more of that sentiment than ever was allowed to escape to the outside.
That's pretty remarkable. And one thing that is always brought up about the United States war on marijuana is the severe racial disparities we find. Do we find those same kind of statistics in Canada?
Not to the extent to which they are in the U.S., and I am familiar with it, but make no mistake, marijuana prosecution disproportionately disadvantages people of limited means and differentially disadvantages various ethnic groups. And when I say people of limited means, it's because money is a resource in the justice system, and if you don't have money to fight the good fight in terms of defending yourself, you wind up in a bad way the vast majority of times. So in that sense, yes, you bet there are parallels. We also don't have the same private prison incarceration machine that is in the U.S., but still we have, I think many people feel, too many people in jail, and putting people in jail for marijuana consumption was never, ever a good idea.
We're speaking with Randy Long, a speaker for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, which has speakers all over the world. You can go to leap.cc or copsaylegalizedrugs.com. Click on the speakers tab, and you'll be able to find a speaker near you. They'll come out and speak to your Rotary Club, your Lions Club, your pep rally, whatever you want, they will come speak for you. And so, Randy, how long have you been with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition?
Oh, that's a good one. It's got to be 6 years or thereabouts. I first went to a talk at the local university here at the basically at the suggestion of one of our members of Parliament. He came, a Supreme Court judge came, and some others. I was able to hear from at the time our local president, who was a serving law enforcement officer in a nearby city. I was most impressed with the message, most impressed with the quality of the people that I've had an opportunity to work with, extremely impressed with the organization. It's a big tent organization, and I've happily been a member ever since.
Well, we're so glad that you are a member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and it's pretty remarkable what's happening now in Canada with these changes from the federal courts as well as the election, bringing in a new Liberal government. We're always looking forward to more progress and reform in Canada. The people of Canada generally supporting these reforms as well? Are they showing majority support like we've got from our Gallup polls in America?
Oh, unquestionably. I've had the opportunity to be on various radio shows and various media outlets talking with people, and we've all seen the poll results. The vast majority of people are in favor of moving forward on this. It's been that way for years. People are concerned about keeping a safe community, a positive community, and as long as we can see our way clear to maintaining that, people are very supportive of the changes that are being contemplated.
One final question for you. With the ascendancy of Donald Trump and the Republican Party in America, are you Canadians ready for an influx of American emigres?
Well, I've got to tell you, as much as it's never a good thing for a foreigner to say too much about somebody else's politics, let me just repeat that a number of folks have said relative to Governor Walker talking about building a wall on the northern border. I've heard some expressions from Canadians up here that wall can't be built soon enough.
Well, we hope that wall doesn't end up going up. I've got a lot of Canadian visits still left on my agenda.
Russ, it was a joke, purely a joke. We love you guys. We love you. You're always welcome up here.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and appreciate your service in the Canadian government, in their justice system. And are you finding more prosecutors, more people in the government themselves are supporting these reforms?
Nope. It's a matter of having to walk the walk, talk the talk, and toe that line. Our public servants are obliged to be professional and not speak to policy matters, but privately, personally, yeah, there's lots of people who are waiting for this day to come.
Oh, Randy Long, thanks so much for joining us here on the Russ Belville Show. We look forward to speaking to you again sometime soon.
Thanks, Russ.
All right, folks, stay around. We've got some more coming up for you. The Radical Rant. Looks like Oregon's recreational and medical systems are kind of merging, and I'm going to tell you why that's a good thing. Plus, in Hour 2, special live in-studio guest, Ganja John is here, so get here early while I can still form sentences. Be right back after this.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Earn your PhD in THC monetization with CannabisRadio.com. Don't be late.
Coming soon to a city near you, Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. Get all your cannabis accounting, legal, and compliance questions answered by their knowledgeable panel of industry experts who want to help your cannabis boom. Whether you're a grower, dispensary operator, or a newcomer to the field, your cannabis needs Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. For information on upcoming events, visit CannabisFinanceBootCamp.com.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make room.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
And one major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant.
Welcome back, everyone. 47 after the hour, and in today's rant, we're taking a look at a bill being worked on in the Oregon legislature. It's Senate Bill 1511, and it will allow medical marijuana patients to show their Oregon Medical Marijuana Program card, their OMMP card, at the future recreational marijuana retail shops. They don't exist yet, but they'll get licensed. We'll have them by summer. So they can make tax-free purchases of marijuana and cannabis products. Patients could shop at a rec shop tax-free. Meanwhile, the bill also extends the temporary early sales program where adults like me can buy marijuana and cannabis seeds and seedlings at the current medical dispensaries to also allow us to purchase cannabis products like edibles and concentrates. So, if the bill passes as expected, the result would be 2 buildings that sell cannabis and cannabis products. One's called a retail shop, and it sells to all customers with no taxes charged to OMMP patients. The other one's called a dispensary, and it sells to all customers with no taxes charged to OMMP patients. The retail shop will get its marijuana and cannabis products from a producer licensed by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, the OLCC. who then transfers it to an OLCC licensed processor. An OLCC licensed tester will inspect the goods before they are then sold by an OLCC licensed retailer to any adult without taxes if the customer shows an OMMP card. The dispensary, on the other hand, will get its marijuana and cannabis products from a producer licensed by the Oregon Health Authority, OHA, or from patients-designated growers, who transfer it to an OHA-licensed processor. An OHA-licensed tester will inspect the goods before they are then sold by an OHA-licensed dispensary to any adult without taxes if the customer shows an OMMP card. Can anyone explain to me the need for this bureaucratic and operational redundancy? I first experienced this dual-track marijuana madness in Fort Collins, Colorado. There, I walked into a rec med facility where the first thing you notice is one of those banker ropes separating the room right down the middle. And there's a sign on the pole that points to the left and says medical, and then a sign that points to the right and says recreational. But behind the counter were all the same items: marijuana, edibles, tinctures, salves, extracts. However, the super silver haze in the jar on the medical side came from a clone of a mother plant tracked on the medical side, while the super silver haze in the jar on the recreational side came from the clone of the mother plant on the recreational side. God. Despite what the Supreme Court said in the Raich v. Gonzalez case, in Colorado and Oregon, marijuana isn't fungible. There's medical marijuana and there's recreational marijuana. Even though it's exactly the same strain, it has to be grown and tracked and sold in two separate supply systems. Why? How much overhead does maintaining two redundant systems add to the overall price of marijuana? It seems to me like the Oregon legislature is slowly merging the medical and recreational marijuana systems. And considering that medical marijuana was always a temporary measure to get the sick and dying off the battlefield until we ended adult marijuana prohibition, this change seems only logical. If medical marijuana was an exception to criminal prosecution, why must the exception continue in the absence of criminal prosecution? For years, the OMMP evolved to better suit the needs of patients by turning a blind eye to the clone shares and the farmer markets and the fake dispensaries that cropped up. But by 2013, the legislature recognized the situation and legalized the dispensaries and set up a system by which medical growers could sell their patients' excess medicine to help stock the dispensaries. But that was a temporary fix for the problem of patient access, not the establishment of an industry for growers. The growers were never supposed to be in this for personal enrichment, remember? Their role was supposed to be that of compassionate caregiver for the sick, merely recouping their expenses for supplies and, later, labor. But now that marijuana is legal in Oregon, the distinction between medical and recreational marijuana isn't as compelling as the distinction between personal and commercial marijuana. For commercial marijuana, I'd prefer if the legislature took all command over the industry from the OLCC and the OHA and created a brand new Oregon Cannabis Regulatory Authority, or OCRA, because I like clever acronyms. OCRA would regulate all commercial growers, commercial processors, commercial wholesalers, commercial testers, and commercial retailers, period. If you're growing pot to sell, you need an OCRA license and you follow OCRA rules. What difference does it make if your end customer is sick or healthy? Why would there need to be different rules for different customers? The fragile health of the patient, perhaps? Okay, then make the safety standards ones that apply to the patients. I'm sure the recreational customers won't mind purer, safer, better labeled products. Now, this might require some sort of micro-business license for the small grower, the one that's currently selling to dispensaries. But so what? If you want to make money selling marijuana, you're a commercial grower, and you should follow the same commercial rules. But if you're growing pot for personal use, you need no license, and you only need to just follow the basic law. What difference does it make if your personal use is to treat an illness, a disability, or boredom on a Saturday night? Now, while OCRA would run the commercial marijuana industry from seed to sale, there would remain within the Oregon Health Authority a medical marijuana program that maintains a registry of patients with doctor's recommendations for medical use and issues them OMMP cards. That card gets you a tax-free purchase at the OCRA store. It allows you to purchase more at the OCRA store, and it gives you greater personal possession and cultivation limits. But what about those western Idaho counties that ban, eastern Oregon, that ban the pot shops but allow the medical dispensaries? Simple. Write a compromise that allows localities to ban adults from shopping at the local Okra stores without an OMMP card. But the trade-off is that it requires a minimum amount of Okra stores by patient population in every county. And for the ones that won't sell to the adults, let's call them Meta Okra. They'll be Meta Okra stores. Look, if you can think of a logical reason why we need to maintain 2 redundant systems for the same flower, just call in and let me know. The phone number is 971-533-7111. Otherwise, thank you, Oregon legislature, for recognizing that marijuana is fungible and redundancy is unneeded. And the way I see it, if you maintain this redundancy, all it can possibly do is harm the recreational consumers. First of all, the location of the stores. If they're separate pot shops versus separate dispensaries, and the dispensaries have already got all the prime locations that are 1,000 feet away from a school, where does the pot shop locate? Or flip it the other direction. When they start allowing these medical places to turn into pot shops, if all the medical places switch to pot shops, where does the medical-only store locate? No, it's better to just have one kind of store. That maximizes the number of locations where anybody could go shop. And then allow everyone to shop at those stores. Just give a tax break to the people that are medical marijuana patients. The other downside I see from maintaining a separate sort of system is it provides a way for the legislature to set up rules that discriminate against the recreational consumer, such as you guys can't buy extracts, or you can only buy less extracts than the patients, or they have to be a lower potency, or the recreational customers can't have edibles that are over, say, 100 milligrams in a package, or whatever. The more we maintain an artificial distinction between the consumers of marijuana based on how healthy or sick they are, the more opportunities will exist for those who want to discriminate against us to continue with that discrimination of, oh, you're just a pothead. You're not a patient. You're a criminal. You're just a slacker loser. It's time to end that false distinction and to provide the same level of respect for consumers of cannabis, no matter why they're consuming cannabis. It doesn't matter if you're consuming it for a sickness, a disability, or just because you like to. It is your right as a human being. My body, my choice. It's your right to be able to use this, and no one has the right to discriminate against you because of your use of that. So let's continue moving forward on this. Let's continue with keeping or evolving these systems so that medical doesn't become its own industry. If I had to give advice to states out there looking to legalize, it would be to try to get to legalization without going through medical. In every state we've seen that set up a medical system that's turned into an industry, that industry has become an enemy to legalization. We've seen them fight it with Prop 19 in 2010. We saw them fight it with I-502 in 2012. We saw them fighting it in Ohio 2015, and now we're seeing them fight it in California for 2016. These stoners against legalization, many of them are motivated by the status quo, wanting to not upset the apple cart. They like the quasi-legalization. It's just legal enough that you're not really worried about getting busted, but still illegal enough that you can charge prohibition prices for it. And what we've seen in Colorado and especially in Washington is the crashing of prices. Right now, I can drive to Vancouver, Washington and pick up a half ounce of greenhouse-grown Time Rec for $45. And that's with a 37% tax and a local sales tax attached to that. So there's no logical reason why consumers should be fearing legalization, but every reason why some of these growers and profiteers should be fearing legalization is it's going to cut into their bottom line. And sorry, nobody deserves to make a profit based on the backs of mostly young, mostly poor, mostly black and Latino people having to deal with cops. So let's get this into one system. There's plenty of money for everyone to make out there, but it's not going to be the same $300 an ounce money that you're used to making. All right, we're going to call it for hour one. Thanks for joining us, but stay tuned. We got a very special guest hanging out here. Ganja John is in the studio. all sorts of developments happening in Ganja John world, and I got a cute anecdote from Seattle about that, too. So stick around. We're back with Toker Talk Radio. Coming up next, our phone line is 971-533-7111 if you want to call in and say hi. For everyone here at CannabisRadio.com and Rolla J Studios, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant